Hey, it's Missy.
It's April.
And this is our podcast, Sheelanagig. Hey, everybody. Hope you're doing well. We are so glad that you're joining us. Each week, of course, we present and explore our own Sheelanagig, a woman whose strength and perseverance has led her to greatness and who empowers us, inspires us, whose stories we want to share with you. Sometimes this is maybe somebody that you've heard of, but maybe you need to learn a little bit more about them, or we think you should. It could be somebody that you've never heard of. But regardless, you need to know. And we want to shed some light on these amazing Sheelas, for sure.
Speaking of,
yes.
Missy, I just wanted to share with you on our episode before this one when we were talking about Frances Glessner-Lee.
That's right.
You had asked me about her children.
I did ask you about her children.
And a couple of things. There's not a lot written about them, but there are 2 sons and a daughter. I don't know that any of them are alive right now. I should have done a little more digging. But one sadly died when he was 32.
Okay.
And the thing that was really interesting that I didn't know and had a little bit of digging before I found is that Fanny was 67 years old and a grandmother with no college education when she first stepped into the Harvard classroom to create the field we now know of as forensic science.
Oh my God, she was that old?
She was that old. So when we...
Not that that's old. That's not old, but in terms of like just starting out your profession in life.
You were asking about her children,
yeah.
And they were either grown or in her middle son's case, probably deceased before she ever really began her career.
She had raised her children already. Interesting. That's very interesting. And oh my God, I went and looked at pictures of those nutshell dioramas. And
aren't they to kill?
They're amazing.
Oh, pardon my pun, aren't they to kill?
They are to kill. They are to kill. And if you haven't looked at them yet, go look at them.
Oh, please do. But I just wanted to give that little note.
Yes.
Her and her kids. And
good. If they just stand right on top of it, look at that.
Try.
Yeah, she's like a dog with a bone. Look at her. But how are you doing?
We're doing pretty well. How about yourself? What's new and exciting?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm trying to think if there's anything super new and exciting.
There is. Look at these.
Oh, I got April some new earrings.
She did. I wish you could see them. They're beautiful.
She has clip earrings. She doesn't wear...
I can't wear ears.
Yeah, so I always am on the lookout for really pretty clip earrings, and I saw these. I saw these in Reedley, outside of Fresno, and this little shop.
In California.
Here in California. That's right. I should say where we are. We're in California. And and I had to get those for you. They look really pretty on you.
I love them. Thank you so much. I wish that you could see them.
Yes, they're perfect for her. Yes. Well, I'm glad you like them. I'm glad you like them.
I do.
Yes, I was in Reedley not too long ago, and what else? Oh, my band, Paddy's Pig. It's a traditional Irish pub band. We just played a cool gig at the Geffen Playhouse. It was for they were showing Waiting for Godot, and so we got to play, which was kind of fun.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and who was swooning in the audience, Missy?
Oh, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it here. I don't want to expose anyone.
Oh,
so we can't talk.
There were some big names in the audience.
Well, there were a few, but yes.
Very excited and very proud of Missy.
No, it was fun. It was super fun. But yeah. What else? Anything else exciting I should know?
Not too exciting, really, that I could think of.
No.
Other than who in the world is your Sheela, because you've been a little smug about her. And I know you went into a tremendous amount of research, so I'm dying to know who this Sheela is.
I did get very excited. I went down the wormhole, which I often do.
I think I see about 17 pages over there.
Well, okay. So I'm going to talk about somebody today that many of you have heard of. I've heard of her, certainly. But I really didn't know that much about her. And I think part of it, too, is she's quite well known here in California. Mm-hmm. But being from Michigan, being from the Midwest, it's kind of insular out here, I mean, and there's a lot that, we don't know. Obviously, very much a part of California history, but a part of world history, certainly, too, because total pioneer. So, She did receive a lot of awards later on in her life, well-deserved, but her contributions have still largely gone unrecognized. So that's kind of why I want to bring her to the forefront today. She is a co-founder of the Chicano movement, and her name is Dolores Huerta. And she's an activist who continues to fight for the rights of laborers, women, and immigrants to this day. Have you heard of her?
You know what? I haven't, but I'm
okay. See, again, this is somebody you should absolutely know about.
Fantastic.
Yes, and it's interesting because we tend to, not on purpose necessarily, but we tend to do a lot of Sheelas who have passed a lot and who are no longer with us. She is credited for coming up with the rallying cry, "Si se puede," which means yes, it is possible, or yes, we can in Spanish. That phrase is often associated with Cesar Chavez. He is actually a huge part of the story as well. But she, in fact, was the one who initially came up with that. So I will just start out by telling you that. And she basically was the co-founder and predecessor for the United Farm Workers of America, the UFW. She is a rebel, she's an activist, a feminist, and a mother, and a grandmother, and a great-grandmother.
Wow, I'm so excited to hear about her.
I know. I will begin my tale.
Please do.
Dolores Huerta was born Dolores Clara Fernandez on April 10th, 1930, in the mining town of Dawson, New Mexico. And she was the daughter of Juan Fernandez and Alicia Chavez, and the second of 3 children. Her father was a farm worker. He was a miner. He was actually a union activist and elected to the New Mexico legislature in 1938. And the strains of the Depression, though, the economy, it unfortunately did not help this young couple's marriage. It was troubled from very early on. And sadly, Juan and Alicia did divorce. And Alicia then eventually relocated her 3 children, John, Dolores, and Marshall, to Stockton, California to make a new start for her family. And once in Stockton, Huerta's maternal grandfather helped to raise her and her 2 brothers.
Oh,
Isn't that sweet? Yeah.
So the mom returned to her parents where her family lived.
Yeah, she returned to where she had grown up, I do believe. And she had a difficult time making ends meet, though, during the Depression decade. And Dolores really looked up to her mother. Alicia worked tirelessly to care for her family. She worked as a waitress during the day. She worked factory jobs at night. She was just constantly working and just trying to keep the family afloat.
Wow.
Huerta enjoyed a close relationship with her maternal grandfather. His name was Herculano Chavez, and he entertained the children with endless stories, as well as providing patient supervision and wise counsel. And he recognized the intelligence and cleverness of his granddaughter. And despite the economic deprivation in the 1930s, Huerta and her siblings really held fond memories of her home and their early upbringing with their grandfather. So
you hear that often about families of very modest means who had happy childhoods because they had such loving parental or grandparent figures in their lives.
I know. Dick Van Dyke, I remember I read something about him saying that he grew up quite poor, but I didn't even know he was poor because his parents provided such love and such support for the arts and just every possibility, out there they endeavored in, took their children to everything they could take them to. And it never even crossed his mind how really poor they were because he had such like a rich life. And I think
really says a lot.
I know. Yeah. And I think about that. I love Dick Van Dyke. But living in Stockton also allowed young Dolores to witness the farm industry firsthand, to observe the inhumane conditions faced by migrant farm workers. And during the Great Depression and World War II, agriculture in California started to really change dramatically. Large food corporations started to take over the small farms. They started to create these massive industrialized farms, and laborers were hired seasonally and paid very, very low wages. And most farm workers were people of color, and they moved often in search of work. So, on top of this, the work was always just very demeaning. It was exhausting and incredibly demanding. And by the 1960s, this is shocking, the average life expectancy of a farm worker in California was 49 years old.
You're kidding.
No.
And, on the one hand, it's shocking. On the other hand, that those lives are so fraught, and the bodies are pushed to the max.
Oh my gosh, completely.
Wow.
It's quite devastating. So as a teenager, though, her economic circumstances in California did improve. Her mother eventually started managing a restaurant. And then after World War II, she was able to purchase her own hotel and restaurant.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Nice.
so that was a big step. And she purchased it with her second husband. It was kind of in a rundown part of town, but they did, they did a lot. They put a lot into it, worked on it themselves to really make it nice. And her second husband's name was James Richards. And they also welcomed farm workers and low-wage workers.
To the hotel, to be guests?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, they
That's
really,
very
she
cool.
really had a soft spot, and so they would often welcome them, but not just welcome them, they would let them stay for free,
Oh, wow.
knowing how little money they had and just really try to help people get back on their feet.
How beautiful.
It was a big hotel. I read in one point it was 70 rooms. So they had a lot of space. They were just very charitable people. And so Alicia's community activism and compassionate treatment of the workers greatly influenced her daughter, of course. And as well as being, influenced by her, as a young child, again, she had observed her own father working as a farm worker, a miner, and a union activist. So kind of this combination of both parents and her grandfather kind of led her down this path of activism. So Huerta and her brothers soon joined by a younger stepsister. They started to work in the establishment after school and during the summers. So the whole family...
Family business.
Yeah, it was a family business. They all pitched in to work in the hotel and restaurant. And they thrived in the poor but diverse community that was home to Mexicans, Filipinos, African Americans, Jewish, Japanese, and Chinese families.
Wow.
Yeah. And so ambitious for her children, Huerta's mom always wanted them to be taking music lessons and dance classes, to join the school clubs and church organizations, and to just participate in the neighborhood life and what was going on around them and all the opportunities that were happening. Her mother's vitality, independence, entrepreneurial spirit placed strains, though, on her second marriage, of course.
Of course.
And sadly, it also ended in divorce. It was hard to see a woman.
Right. She sounded like a real pioneer,
Yeah.
a go-getter.
And to see a woman in that role, I think, was a very, very intimidating for a man, especially at that time, especially a Hispanic woman. I mean, this was really unheard of. So it did not bode well for the marriage, unfortunately. But
or fortunately, one never knows.
yes, exactly. It just wasn't meant to be. But at least they were able to, start the hotel together
and get things going.
Yeah, get things going. So, but discrimination also helped shape Huerta. She had a school teacher at Stockton High School who was very prejudiced against Hispanics. And she accused Huerta of cheating because her papers were too well written.
That is infuriating.
Yeah. And the fact that, she was being raised by a single mother and she was Hispanic, of course you didn't write this paper. Oh, wow. It's just so insulting. It's yeah. And also in 1945, at the end of World War II, white men actually brutally beat her younger brother for wearing a zoot suit.
Oh, no.
Which was a very popular Latino fashion at the time. Yeah.
So that's heartbreaking.
It was very heartbreaking. So she was really witnessing discrimination firsthand. And none of this stopped her, though, from being an excellent student. She joined the Girl Scouts. She was a majorette. She took dance and music lessons, and she participated in the youth group.
Wow.
And a little side note about Girl Scouts.
Yeah.
She said that she overcame her shyness. She said she was actually, kind of shy as a child, and she learned to speak up and to be of service because she joined the Girl Scouts. And she talks about how her 10 years in the Girl Scouts, with their mission to teach practical skills and make girls self-sufficient and build character and confidence, really shaped her life as the outspoken leader that she became.
Wow. That's really nice to hear.
I know. Yeah. I think that's, I just shout out to the Girl Scouts.
Right.
I was never a Girl Scout.
My daughter was a brownie for 6 months.
Really?
Yeah, she loved it, but she had to go to Hebrew school. So.
Oh, April, shame on you. No, I'm kidding. That's hilarious. Well, yeah. Here's a little side note about me. So I never wanted to be the main thing. I always had to do everything a little bit different. So
no,
I remember
really?
they had the brownies and the Girl Scouts, but they also had the Bluebirds and the Campfire Girls.
So were you a bluebird or a camp
Well,
girl?
this is what happened. It was a kindergarten, and the Bluebirds were doing, they were trying to get people involved, get kids involved. And so they had a little party at our school, and I went with my friend. We were both in kindergarten to the Bluebirds party. And I can't remember. Her name was Jenny Jenkins, just like the song. I remember that. And I can't remember, but she was really like goading me, and she was teasing me, and I was really pissed off. I was really annoyed with Jenny Jenkins, and we had to do pinata. They brought a pinata in, and so we were supposed to hit the pinata, and we had this wiffle bat, just like a plastic bat. And Jenny Jenkins was standing there, and I could see a little bit through my blindfold, and so I was just trying to hit the pinata,
Missy.
but by accident, Jenny got smacked right in the head with my wiffle bat. I don't know how it happened, April. I don't know how it happened.
And that was the end of your bluebird career?
Well, it was interesting because they were really mean about it. They immediately called my shit. Like, it wasn't like, oh, it was an act. They were like, no, we do not allow little girls who hit other little girls into the Bluebirds. You're going to be asked to leave. And I was asked to leave. I had to go walk home. I had to walk home from the Bluebirds. And then I remember Jenny Jenkins came over afterward and like knocked on my door, and she's like, I just want to say, I'm sorry you got sent home. We got all this candy, and we got this. She like showed off everything she had gotten. And sorry you can't join the Bluebirds. I was like, fuck you, Jenny Jenkins. Fuck you.
I thought you were going to say, and she gave you some candy.
No, she just brought it over to like show me and to rub it in.
She was probably thinking we got rid of her.
I didn't hit her that hard, April. I was just pissed, And anyway, that was the end.
I cannot condone that behavior.
I know.
I'm sorry.
I know.
And just quick note, I was inaccurate. Sarah was not a brownie. She was Daisy. She was a Daisy, Daisy is in between brownie and Girl Scout.
Oh my God, really? They don't have daisies anymore, I don't think.
I don't know.
I've never heard of a daisy. That's interesting. Maybe it was regional. Maybe we didn't have daisies in Detroit.
Anyway,
I don't think so.
I think we better get back to your Sheila.
Maybe. Anyway, I just wanted to share that story. Maybe if I had joined the Girl Scouts, it would have been totally different.
Absolutely.
They sure make good cookies, I'll say that.
They do.
What's your favorite Girl Scout cookie?
Oh my gosh. It's the kind, I think they're called Samoas.
That's Samoas.
Samoas.
Oh, those are my favorite too, April.
Yeah.
Never talked about this.
Girl Scout.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Moving along.
Anyway, after graduating in 1948, Dolores married her boyfriend, Ralph Head. Dolores and Ralph had 2 daughters, but after only 3 years, they too divorced. Another free thinker, you know.
Can't have these free-thinking women in marriage.
No, that is...
Marriage is bad for free thinking.
That's right. That's no place for a free-thinking woman. The confines of marriage. All right,
so we're both married.
We're both married. I didn't get married until I was 41. Granted, I was way too immature.
I was 40, yeah.
When you got married?
The second time. Yeah.
Really? Wow. Yay. Wow. We're finding more things in common.
38, yeah.
Okay. Well, I was just, it was just arrested development for me. But so Huerta earned her provisional teaching license from the University of Pacific's Delta Community College, and that was really uncommon for a Mexican-American woman at the time. That was kind of unheard of.
Good for her, yeah.
And so after college, she began teaching English to migrant farm workers' children, which was very near and dear to her heart.
Right.
However, she was so saddened by the level of poverty she witnessed. Her students would often come to class hungry, barefoot, or not show up at all. So just after 1 year of teaching, she decided that she needed to do more. She needed to make a bigger difference. And she found her calling at an organization while serving in the leadership of the Stockton Community Service Organization, which is also called the CSO. The CSO encouraged Spanish speakers to participate in civic life, and during this time, she set up voter registration drives, and she supported bilingual candidates, pressed local governments for barrio improvements, and lobbied for equal rights for Stockton's Latino community. She also engaged the community by providing English classes, health clinics, and a credit union.
Wow, so she became a real
She just went to work, man.
Yeah.
She just
don't waste her
No,
time.
she didn't waste any time.
Go right for it.
And due to her dedication and willingness to serve, the CSO founder, Fred Ross, kind of noticed her right away and noticed what a power she was, what a force she was. And so from the very beginning, of her joining, he often started delegating really large responsibilities to Dolores. And he knew that she was capable of delivering the organization's message and promoting its agenda. And as she assumed these responsibilities and this stance that were traditionally held by white males, Huerta unfortunately encountered criticism based on both gender and ethnic stereotypes. Not surprising.
Not surprising.
Not surprising, right? And while working with the CSO, Dolores married fellow organizer Ventura Huerta, and they had 5 children together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Plus she had 2 from
3.
before. 3.
So
okay.
we're now up to 8, April.
Wow.
We're up to 8.
I can count.
Okay.
Wow.
Dolores and Ventura's marriage was difficult, though, because they had opposing ideas on what Dolores's role in the marriage should be.
Imagine.
Yeah, imagine that. Imagine that, right? So in 1955, CSO founder Fred Ross introduced her to CSO executive director, a man named Cesar Chavez.
Okay.
Okay, here we
Things
go.
are coming into focus,
Yes.
right?
He was a like-minded colleague, and the two discovered that they shared a very common vision of organizing farm workers and this was an idea that was not in line really with the CSO's mission. And in 1962, Huerta's efforts helped lead to the repeal of the Bracerio program. In Spanish, Bracerio translates to strong arms. And basically, the Bracerio program was a guest worker agreement between the United States and Mexico that allowed Mexican nationals to work legally in United States agriculture, primarily on farms during a period of labor shortage. But due to widespread criticism regarding poor working conditions, exploitation of the workers, and concerns that the program was depressing wages for domestic farm workers, Huerta fought tirelessly to repeal this program, and she succeeded.
Wow. That's fabulous.
Yeah.
That's really impressive.
Yeah, so she was really one of those people that she put her mind towards something and she accomplished
Went for
it.
it. Yeah.
Time and time again. I mean, she was a very powerful woman. Very powerful.
Missy, I just really want to compliment you on doing this because, of course, all of us have heard of Cesar Chavez.
That's what I mean.
But, I'm just hearing about her, and shamefully and sadly.
Right.
But I'm glad you're shining a light on her.
She definitely needs it,
Yeah.
absolutely. And again, I'm sure many of you have heard of her. And I had heard of her, but I really didn't know that much. And so this was a really interesting wormhole for me.
Right.
A really interesting Sheela. So that same year, we're talking about 1962 now, Huerta went on to co-found the National Farmer Workers Association with Cesar Chavez.
Wow.
Yeah. They basically sought to organize Mexican-American farm workers, and they fought for a better quality of life, equity, the right to organize, family health insurance, and pension plans.
Fabulous.
This has never been done before. This was unheard of.
Yeah.
So the union later became known as the United Farm Workers, and it's the oldest Latino organization to come out of the civil rights movement and the largest farm worker organization in America to this day.
Wow. Impressive.
Yeah, very impressive. So Huerta's contributions were many. She excelled at organization and detail, much more than Chavez, and she believed in tackling issues head on and was comfortable handling confrontations.
Good for her.
She was apparently she was very calm, very sage, and she didn't get riled real easily. But it was interesting because she and Chavez were known for their blowout arguments, apparently. Which Huerta considered a healthy part of their collaboration.
I love it.
And although she deferred to him publicly, in private, she made her opinions quite known. And she tangled with other leaders of the UFW, its members, and of course the growers. And such behavior, again, was so shocking in the Mexican-American community.
A mere woman speaking up.
Exactly. Women were not supposed to be active, assertive in public, and of course her strength of personality undoubtedly is what propelled the UFW forward.
Wow.
Yeah. And so she cited that migrant farm workers were being paid little to nothing, had no rights, they slept on floors, they had wooden boxes of furniture, unclean water sources, they lacked access to bathrooms, and they worked from sunrise to sundown without breaks. Many of these workers would migrate to where the crops were in season, so meaning their children never had proper education either, because they were constantly being uprooted, taken to the next destination, to the next farm. And they would often end up just working in the fields alongside their parents, not even being educated because of this. And so she explained that many women were often sexually assaulted as well by landowners, but of course they were in fear to speak up because their family needed these jobs. And it was happening on a regular basis. So she accused landowners of expecting free labor and justifying it as doing the farm workers and the public a favor by giving these people jobs. It's just so disgusting. The whole thing is just disgusting. So in 1963, working alongside Chavez, Huerta secured state-backed aid for dependent families and disability insurance for injured California farm workers, an unparalleled feat at the time.
Wow.
And then, sadly, or not sadly, as we said before, in 1964, Huerta and Ventura's marriage ended. So they hung on a few more years, but it ended. And of course, again, Ventura wanted the family to be Dolores' first priority. That was not the case, although she very much loved her children. She felt very compelled to dedicate her time to the farm workers. And she traveled often, she worked constantly, and she was unapologetic about it.
Good for her.
I know, right? So later, though, she wrote about the difficulty of doing this work as a single mother. Her car would often break down. She had little to no income. Her children had to come with her on road trips.
Wow. Yeah.
She did a lot of homeschooling. She was a teacher.
Oh, yeah.
So it was helpful that she had her teaching skills. So she did a lot of, she wanted her children to continue to be educated. She had to do a lot of homeschooling on the road.
So she juggled a lot.
She did.
Wow.
Yes. And she recognized the toll that it took on her children, too. She recognized that. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't walk away. She was very torn.
Yeah.
And she decided that, she and her children just needed to make these sacrifices for the greater good. So be it.
So be it.
So be it.
And like we were saying earlier, I don't know if her children felt that their experience as a young people was enriched by her dedication, by all of the experiences and the travel they undertook, or if they felt deprived or robbed.
And I did look for some information on that. Some of her children have talked very freely and openly about her, and mostly very positive, very, very positive and inspired, as she was by her own mother, who worked constantly.
Right.
Had no choice,
She had a role model of somebody who was not sitting home baking.
Exactly. Exactly. So, it's interesting. And I think that from what I read, some of her children fared very well. Some of them struggled. But after her divorce from Ventura Huerta had a romantic relationship with Richard Chavez, the brother of Cesar Chavez.
Oh, okay.
They never married, but they had 4 children together, and Huerta and Chavez were life partners until his death in 2011.
Oh, wow.
In 1965, Cesar Chavez and Delores Huerta brought Mexican and Filipino workers to form the United Farmer Workers, UFW. The UFW joined a strike of 5,000 grape pickers in Delano, California in 1968. She directed a national grape boycott to protest the dangers of pesticides on grape pickers. Wow. The UFW pushed for that boycott of table grapes, and millions of Americans refused to buy them.
I remember that.
Do you?
Yes, I do.
Really?
I do. Or maybe I remember some dramatizations of that effort, because I was only about 8 years old at the time.
Yeah.
But it was always associated, in my mind, at least, with Cesar Chavez.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't remember it. I mean, I know...
It was a big deal.
You're a little older than me.
Yes, I am.
So I don't remember it, but I think I remember hearing about it. Like I don't remember experiencing it. I mean, I would have only been 2 at that time.
Yeah,
right?
I think I do remember.
I was born in 68, and then I think it was by 70 that they started to resolve things. So I was, born in 68, 2 years old in 1970. How old were you, April?
In 70, I was 10.
See?
Yeah. So I definitely...
So you would have had much more of an awareness for it than I would have.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do remember learning about it, certainly in history and that kind of thing. But
I'm pretty sure. And I could have learned about this later, but I remember our family talking about it and how, the boycott on grapes and the labor union issues of the time. Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. No wine.
No wine.
No wine. But in the end, they actually won. In 1970, the first growers agreed to sign union contracts, The strife did continue for another 3 years, however, but this really resulted in the entire California table grape industry changing its practices. And she negotiated the first ever collective bargaining agreement with an agricultural business to secure better wages and working conditions for farm workers.
Wow.
So pretty freaking amazing.
Yes, indeed.
She's so badass, right?
Total.
And also, while directing the first national boycott of California table grapes, Huerta also began challenging gender discrimination within the farmer workers movement. In 1966, she negotiated a contract between the UFW and the Sheela Wine Company, the first time that farm workers successfully bargained with an agricultural enterprise. Wow. There was a newspaper at the time, and it was called The Voice of the Farm Worker, and this is from an issue from June 2nd of 1966. And it says, the first week in June 1966 is a historic week for farm workers. For the first time in history, a major grower signs a contract with the National Farm Workers Association. For the first time in history, farm workers are protected by a written contract guaranteeing a wage of not less than $2 an hour. For the first time in history, the farm workers are protected by a union. Here is what this protection means. The FWA demands that Sheela Industries pay all farm workers at least $2 an hour guaranteed throughout the year. Irrigators will get $2.25 an hour. Tractor drivers will get $2.50 an hour. Sprayers, truck drivers, and pipemen will get $2.75 an hour.
What year was this?
This is in 1966.
Wow. Can you imagine $2 an hour? And that was a hard-won right.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty shocking. I know. In the pruning season, pruning by hand will pay $2.50 per hour, plus a bonus of $1.50 per row in cane and $1 per row in spur pruning. Pruning by machine will pay $3.50 per hour, plus a bonus of $1 per row. The Sheela workers were not sure how they wanted to be paid for the wine grapes. At first, they wanted $4 an hour guaranteed plus $1 per ton for the grapes picked, but then the workers voted to ask for a straight piece rate of $8, $10, or $12 per ton picked, depending on the field and licking. But it was the workers themselves who decided what wages would be.
Wow, that was pretty progressive.
Very progressive. Very progressive for that time. April, we should look up right now. Let's look up in 1966. How much was $2 while I continue to chat about this? Okay. Because I should have looked that up, but now I want to know. Okay. Cesar Chavez seems to most often get credited here. Certainly he was no slouch. He was an amazing man who did amazing things. And he really defended and respected Huerta.
$2 in 1966 is worth $19.49 today.
Wow.
Almost $20.
That's, wow. Well, I mean, that's not bad.
Not bad.
It seemed like so little when I was talking about it, but I mean, that's, oh my gosh. That's so interesting.
It is.
I mean, and these are people that weren't being paid anything.
Right.
Being totally ripped off. Or if they were being paid, maybe like it would be like $1 a day or, it was bad.
Yeah.
Suddenly they had these protections in place, which was amazing thanks to Huerta and Chavez.
Right.
History, of course, tells us that Cesar Chavez transformed the U.S. labor movement by leading the first farm workers union. But, of course, often missing from this story is his equally influential co-founder, Dolores Huerta, which is who we're talking about right now. She tirelessly led the fight for racial and labor justice alongside Chavez, becoming one of the most defiant feminists of the 20th century. Mm-hmm. She also involved herself in politics, of course. Of course. Does that go without saying, right? And, of course, another very important way to make a change. Huerta and the UFW canvassed in Los Angeles to back the presidential bid of Robert F. Kennedy.
Wow.
The former attorney general had come to Delano to support the grape strike and had admonished local police for their treatment of picketing farm workers. Huerta stood beside Kennedy on the speaker's platform when he delivered his victory speech for the California Democratic Party primary in June 1968, minutes before he was gunned down in a kitchen pantry just off the Ambassador Hotel ballroom.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
That's pretty
I know.
amazing.
His assassination was the death of our future, she lamented years later in an interview with NBC News marking the 50th anniversary of Kennedy's killing. Huerta led boycotts of grapes, lettuce, and gala wine in the 1970s, and these boycotts helped create the climate that led to the 1975 Agricultural Labor Relations Act. This legislation was quite pioneering, and it gave the state's farm workers the right to unionize and engage in collective bargaining for better wages and conditions.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty significant.
Yeah.
And then in the 1980s, Huerta co-founded the UFW's radio station and continued to speak and raise funds on behalf of a variety of causes, including immigration policy and farm laborers' health. So she had this cool little radio station she created where she would just be chatting about it. And that whole, yes, we can, yes,
Yes.
I read that it came from when they were really seeking to make these changes. They got this kickback that said, okay, you're not allowed to use the word strike. You're not allowed to use the word boycott. These words are banned. And they said, oh, no, yes, we can. Wow. Yes, we can. Yeah. Which I won't attempt again to say in Spanish right now because I think I butchered it the first time, but si se puede.
It's very nice.
Is that right?
For a gringo.
Well, I know.
I don't know. I'm telling you, I'm another gringo.
I'm trying. Okay, so it's pretty fascinating. And at this point, Huerta had been arrested more than 20 times in her life for nonviolent activities and strikes during her years as a labor leader and a civil rights activist. So she was
surprising.
Yes, she was familiar. She was familiar to being jailed, discriminated against. These were nonviolent protests. But on September 14th of 1988, when Dolores was 58 years old, 2 years older than me, she was severely beaten by police in San Francisco at a peaceful protest, no less.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I don't know why I'm saying this, because at that time, that was common. Yeah.
Even in an amazing progressive city like San Francisco, unfortunately. Yeah. So it was, again, a peaceful protest for farm workers and in San Francisco. And the protest was held outside the San Francisco Hotel. And, it was in support of workers and that boycott of the table grapes against then presidential candidate George H.W. Bush's policies and platform. The beating left Huerta with several broken ribs and required emergency surgery to remove her pulverized spleen.
Oh, my goodness.
She was 5'2".
Oh, my gosh.
A little taller than you, April. But this tiny, I just think about that, this tiny, tiny little woman gets beaten by police. Like, wow. She was a real threat. She was 5'2".
Well, she was a threat. She was not that I think I'm advocating her beatings.
Right.
But she was a force to be reckoned with.
Of course she was.
And it's just tragic. That whole history is very tragic.
Yeah. It's devastating. It's devastating. And it's lucky they didn't kill her. I mean, she was very, very injured, and it was a long recovery. And that beating was widely broadcast on local television news and triggered an outrage in the labor movement, thankfully. And Huerta won a large judgment against the San Francisco Police Department and the city of San Francisco, which led to changes in crowd control policies and officer discipline.
There's a silver lining.
I know. Yeah, exactly. Good. Exactly.
Maybe by having somebody as high profile as she was.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And of course she saw it that way too. Yeah. She's like, if this is what it takes to create change, then so be it. She took everything in stride. That's just who she was, who she is. Like, again, she's still living today. Oh, and I'm sure she hasn't changed much. But after a lengthy recovery, Huerta took leave of absence from union work. And although she continued to serve on the U.S. Commission on Agricultural Workers from 1988 to 1993, she also worked on the Feminist Majority Foundation's Feminization of Power 50-50 by the year 2000 organization, which is pretty amazing. It was a campaign, actually. It encouraged Latinas to run for public office, which resulted in a significant increase in the number of women elected.
Fabulous.
I know. And she traveled the country for 2 years on behalf of this campaign. Like so many powerful female advocates, Dolores and her sweeping reforms were and still are largely overlooked. Even as she empowered generations of immigrants to stand up for their rights, her own relentless work ethic was constantly under attack. False accusations from foes and friends alike of child neglect, immoral behavior from a woman who was married 3 times and raised 11 children pushed Dolores out of the very union she helped to create.
Are you kidding? Oh, wow.
No.
Wow.
No. So history tells us that Cesar Chavez transformed the U.S. labor movement, but he did not do it alone.
Yeah.
As we now know, said Marie Nelson, a PBS vice president, he was a partner, but he was an equal partner. And sadly, on April 23rd, 1993, Cesar Chavez passed away in his sleep at only 66 years old. Dolores was devastated, and after his death, her role in the UFW changed. She was not chosen to succeed Chavez as president of the UFW, despite her seniority and her popularity with the workers, primarily due to the widespread sexism within the labor movement at the time. Her strong relationship and assertive nature were often viewed as unfitting for a woman, despite her significant contributions. Many within the union leadership simply did not believe that a woman should hold such a prominent position.
Wow, that is not surprising,
So
but it
sucky.
is infuriating.
Oh my God. They were obviously very intimidated by her.
Right. As this happens often with assertive, powerful women.
And when Chavez was no longer there to, protect her and elevate her, that was it.
That was it. Wow.
Yeah, sucks. So at that point, she very graciously accepted the situation, and she continued to serve and continued to work as an advocate and spokesperson for the organization, often acting as a lobbyist and a public figure. And she continued, of course, speaking out on behalf of farm workers' rights and other social justice causes. In 1993, Huerta was inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame, where she was the first Latina inducted.
Wow. That's great.
And she's also the recipient of many honors. She received the Eleanor Roosevelt Human Rights Award from President Clinton in 1998. And just a little background on that was actually established by Bill Clinton, President Clinton, in 1998. It's an award that recognizes U.S. citizens who promote human rights at home and abroad. And the award was first given to honor Roosevelt's role in the development of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And Human Rights Campaign President Joe Salmonese issued the following statement. Dolores Huerta has spent her entire life as a champion of marginalized people. As a leader in the labor and civil rights movements, Dolores has made the lives of hundreds and thousands of people infinitely better. She recognized early that all oppressed people, the nation's farm workers, women, ethnic minorities, and the LGBT community share the common goal of a fairer nation. The Presidential Medal of Freedom is an honor Dolores clearly deserves. We are proud to call her an ally in the fight for equality.
Wow.
Isn't that beautiful?
That is beautiful.
Yeah. And then she also was named one of the 3 most important women by Ms. Magazine in 1997. And she became a member of the Ms. Magazine Advisory Board and the board of the Feminist Majority Foundation, which actually publishes Ms. Magazine.
Nice. Nice. So she has been recognized, as you said, at the start of the podcast.
Right.
But still not as widely known. Not
as widely known as she should be.
Right, exactly.
She should be a household name.
Yes.
Like Cesar Chavez.
So. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in 2002, she received the Puffin Nation $100,000 prize for creative citizenship. And this is an American award given jointly by Type Media Center and the Puffin Foundation, given to an individual who's challenged the status quo through distinctive, courageous, imaginative, and socially responsible work of significance. And so the Puffin Prize awards $100,000 to its recipient with the intention of encouraging them to continue their work and to inspire others to challenge the prevailing orthodoxies they face in their careers.
Nice.
So, what did she do with that money?
She bought herself
a fur coat.
Right.
Yes, and diamond earrings.
Benz. Of course. Right. What'd she do with the money?
Not. She established the Dolores Huerta Foundation, which supports and influences public policy on health and environment, education and youth development, and economic development. Huerta still works to confront the issues faced by working, poor, women, LGBT, and children.
Of course.
Yes, yes. In 2012, President Obama awarded Huerta the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and that is the nation's highest civilian honor for her lifetime of advocacy on behalf of the undeserved. This is quite, it's a big highlight for her, but what's interesting about this too is the same day that she was receiving the Medal of Freedom, the Girl Scouts founder, Juliette Gordon-Low, was also awarded the same honor.
Oh, how sweet.
Isn't that
sweet? Yeah, that kind of...
Yeah, she had already passed away at that point, but she
nice.
Also received that. It was very,
very touching.
Very touching, very fitting. Basically, Huerta believes that the most lasting change is rooted in community organizing, and she will continue to pursue it. That's what she always says. She will continue to pursue it. She obviously pursued it her whole life. And she says ordinary working people, once they understand that they can make the changes and you can get them involved and then they can commit their time, they can commit their resources to be able to make those changes, I think that is what keeps me going.
Oh, wow. How beautiful.
She was an outspoken advocate for world peace, of course, as well. During the decades of leadership, she endured beatings, death threats, arrests, for, again, leading those nonviolent protests, just to give a voice to the voiceless.
Wow.
Never stopped her. And so the unflappable leader had her bones broken, but never her spirit in the struggle. So today, Huerta is 94 years old, and she continues to be a board member of the Feminist Majority Foundation and the founder of the Dolores Huerta Foundation. I believe her daughter has taken over as the president at this point. She runs the she runs the Delores Huerta Foundation. She has 11 children, 14 grandchildren, 4 great-grandchildren, and her children have also been involved in social justice causes and activism. I was reading something, and one of her daughters said, but my mom was always supportive of whatever you wanted to be. And one of my brothers became a rapper.
Oh, wow.
And she would just be like, let's hear your raps. She was always, whatever it was you wanted to be, she encouraged it. She was supportive and encouraging. As a role model to many in the Latino community, Huerta is the subject of many ballads, Mexican and Mexican-American ballads, and murals.
Nice.
Yes. So Dolores actually is the name of a 2017 American documentary directed by Peter Bratt. And if I'm not mistaken, his mother was Peruvian and marched actually.
Oh,
had the opportunity to march with Huerta.
How beautiful.
And to meet her. And there's so many beautiful stories, but he felt really compelled to create this documentary about her. So I'm eager to see it. I haven't seen it yet, but it's certainly on my list. Her son, Emilio, said that she taught us purpose in life. He's actually a lawyer. He does not intend to pursue politics, but he would rather just focus on other ways to improve the community. He is working toward creating his own organization to support future potential candidates in politics who lack resources to fund a successful campaign.
Even though he's not following in his mother's footsteps, he's following in her footsteps.
Yes, he absolutely is. Because he's saying just because you're not wealthy doesn't mean you'd be an excellent candidate. But unfortunately, sometimes that, because people don't have the money, they can't pursue candidacy.
Right.
So he's trying to make a change in that, which I think is really remarkable and amazing. Significant. Also, Dolores' daughter, Camila Chavez, is the executive director of the Dolores Huerta Foundation. And she spoke about growing up in La Paz, going to rallies on weekends, and how her childhood influenced her decision to pursue social justice. She said, we all lived in mobile homes and trailers. We all lived very poor, but we had such a rich community. And that was a very different experience than most people have. So that was just a big blessing. And as a child, I didn't realize what it was, that work, until we were older.
Yeah.
And there's just a mini, I kind of scratched the surface.
There's a lot.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
I tried to give the main points, but I encourage everybody to dig deeper and to learn more. And like I said, she's still alive. Like
Right.
I actually shot her a little email, her organizational little email today, just asking if there would be any chance that we could chat with her. But
my goodness.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
That would be amazing.
It would be amazing. But we'll see. We'll keep you posted about it, certainly. And I was reading about this reporter who was at Cesar Chavez's funeral, and she made the comment about, she looked over and she saw Dolores Huerta, and she was putting, like, they were going after the funeral, they were going on to do a march.
Oh wow!
And she saw her putting on her tennis shoes.
Yeah.
And just getting ready.
Right.
Just like getting ready for her march. Once again, she's and she claims she'll never stop. And it sounds like,
well, at 94, it sounds like she's living up to that claim.
Yeah, it sounds like she won't stop, and we hope she doesn't, because
sure do.
What a significant contribution. What a beautiful, beautiful woman. What a beautiful person. We're so honored, Dolores Huerta. We are so honored to focus on you today and give you some light. So thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thank you, and thank you, Missy, for coming up with such an amazing Sheela.
Thank you.
I loved hearing about her.
Thank you. Until next time, bye.
Bye.
Sheela, Sheelanagig.